Hello everyone, Tina here. I hope your day is going fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me. Today I'm going to share with you a few items that are brand new over at the Simon Says Stamp Shop. They are part of a brand new release called Peace on Earth. If you guys get a chance, head on over there to check out the release or the Simon Says Stamp blog, because there is lots to this release. Today I'm going to share with you a few items that I'm going to be playing with out through the month. Starting off with this, we're going to create a card with this today. This is the Snowflake Edges stamp set. It's 6x8 and it has a border that's real pretty, perfect for mini slimline cards or regular slimline cards. You can see this is a regular one and it has real pretty borders, and then there's some straight edges and then a corner too that have stitch detail on there. The sentiments are very pretty. They have block font and then a scripty font to go with it. So that's the one we're going to be creating with today. But this one is new to the Simon shop, and it's called Hello Sweater Weather. It is basically a focal point die, and we'll be using this later on. Actually, the rest of the projects that I'm going to share, or the rest of the items that I'm sharing with you today, all month long I'll be creating with. This is a really pretty background die, and it's called the Holly Stem and Berries. I love this because the stems and berries are solid, so it's great for ink blending, and I'll be using that with Sweater Weather later on. There is a stencil that's really pretty for the fall season. It's called Pumpkins. And next we're going to share the die set called Fine Petal Leaf Branches. This is new to the shop. I love this not only for holiday cards or for fall cards, but everyday cards. There's two dies in here. You get a leaf die and then you get the flower with the leaves. And later on this month I'll be creating with this too. So pretty. There is etch detail in here. Etch detail is cut lines that create detail lines. They don't necessarily cut out, but they do create beautiful detail. So there's another stamp set that is a 4x6 one. This one's called Holiday Sprigs, and I like it. It has mistletoe. It has some pretty holiday sentiments, candy canes and poinsettias. Lots in here. And again, this is called Holiday Sprigs. I'll be creating a slimline card with that. Maybe a mini slimline. We'll see. There's also a brand new specialty cardstock over at the Simon shop. This has a glossy finish on the front, and I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure you could use this for alcohol inks, guys. You also, on the back side, it's a matte finish, but it's great for foiling. I know there are a lot of companies now are coming out with hot foil plates, and this is called the white glossy cardstock. There's 10 in a pack. They're 8.5 by 11 sheets, and I'm anxious to give this a try. I know Spellbinders has a cardstock for their glimmer machine, and so it's nice to have options. Let's jump in. That's what I get to play with for the Simon Says Stamp Peace on Earth release. So look forward to creating some more projects with some items from this release. But for today, we're going to create a snowflake card. So I'm taking some Ranger distressed watercolor cardstock. This is nice cardstock because it's on the wider side. There is texture on the front and then a smooth side on the back. And since we're going to be doing a little ink smishing, and this snowflake set has some details in it, I'm going to be using the smooth side. I'm going to take a sheet, and it's actually my last sheet. I need to get some more, but we're going to trim down a 3.5 inch wide piece of cardstock. We're going to make a regular slimline card today. And again, we'll use the smooth side, not the textured side. I'm bringing in my Misty, my stamping positioner, and then in the stamp set, we're going to take the largest border piece. We'll tack this in here. I'm making sure I remove my magnet, and I have adhesive stuck to my mouse pad, so I was just making sure it was going to stick down, because with new stamps, you know how sticky they are. Sometimes it lifts the paper up, and you could ruin your project. And with this being the last piece, I kind of want to make sure. Let's take our border snowflake stamp and put it in here. We're not going all the way to the edge of our cardstock. We're leaving about 1/4 inch. I know I'm going to probably trim this paper down a little bit, and so I wanted to have, if I got it crooked, I wanted to have option. Let's take Versamark ink, go over our stamp, and I didn't show it, but I did go over my panel with my anti-static powder tool. We'll ink this up a few times. There is a lot of detail in the stamp, so twice is better. And then after we have Versamark stamped, I'm going to bring in a piece of scratch paper, and we'll also go over this. Usually I use white or clear, and I thought we would shake it up today and use a colored embossing powder. The color that I'm using is a brand from Simon Says Stamp, and it's called Steel Blue. It's a really pretty pearly kind of a blue, darker blue. We'll go over our snowflakes, and you can really see the detail in here and how pretty they are. And we'll funnel this back in. And before I heat set this, I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit more stamping. We're going to stamp on the same Ranger Distress Watercolor cardstock, and there's a larger snowflake that's an individual one. We'll stamp that in our sentiment on this piece. I stamped the sentiment that says sending you peaceful Christmas wishes, and I added my embossing powder. Now my sentiment, I just couldn't clean it up. I didn't use my anti-static powder bag on that corner very well, so I'm going to do a redo. We'll just put this back in the MISTI, go over it really well with our anti-static powder tool, and then restamp it, add embossing powder. I went ahead and melted all of the embossing powder, and now we'll trim after we do our little ink smushing. But I have a craft mat from Ulta New that is made for stamping and ink smushing, I suppose. We're going to bring that in and grab some Distress Oxide inks. I'm going to use 3 different colors today. I'm going to use a couple of them are the new ones. I have the Salvage Patina, the Prize Ribbon, and then I also have Mowed Lawn. We're just gonna, my Salvage Patina, you can see I have a little pool of ink. It's very juicy, which is nice. I think I need to refill some of my Distress Oxide inks because some of them are going pretty dry. But we're gonna just add some color to our mat, kind of spreading out the color with our blues and our teal and our green. And then to give it a little bit of sparkle, I'm going to bring in some Perfect Pearls. A little goes a long way with this little container. This is Biscotti, and I'll link it down below. But I'm going to use my little scoop spoon and spoon a little bit directly on my mat. Now after we have our perfect, it's going to add a slight shimmer to our background. I'm going to use my spray bottle here, and we're going to add lots of water to the background. We're going to really saturate it, otherwise you're going to have a clump of that Perfect Pearls. You know, I don't think that would look very nice on the card. Spray it really good. If you wanted to take a paintbrush and kind of do a little swirling with it now, you could, but I kind of like the different sections of color. I'm going to take my background panel here and kind of just hold it down, letting some of the color just absorb into the cardstock, and then we'll slowly lift it up. And I think we're going to ink it. I think that we're going to, if you wanted to, guys, you could dry it and re-ink it again, but I think one time is just perfect. Kind of wanted a little bit on the softer side. I'll do the same thing with my sentiment. I think that looks good, and our individual snowflake here. We'll do the same thing, making sure I get all of the colors on that snowflake. Once I'm happy with the outcome, I'm going to use my heat. You could set this aside to dry on its own, which would probably be better, but for video purposes, I'm going to speed up the drying process and use my heat gun. So once all my panels are dry, I think they look great. We're going to remove our mat here, and I'm going to bring in my white gel pen. I wanted to make sure that my snowflakes kind of stood out and didn't get lost in that background. Although it's kind of hard with the darker embossing powder, but this is a nice way to just make them stand out a little more. With my white gel pen, I'm going to go over the enclosed areas of the snowflakes, just adding some white detail, and this is kind of going to make them pop a little bit more. I'm going to do the same thing to my background panel that has all those snowflakes on there. Some snowflakes you can't, because of course there's no connected areas that you could add white detail to, but for the most part you can do it. Just basically you're coloring with your white gel pen. Now, once we have all of our detail added with our white gel pen, I'm going to go ahead and do a little splattering. I'm bring back my Ulta New Matte here, and in my little jar I put some white acrylic paint. The one that I use is from Dina Wakley. It's in the little squeeze container, and I added water to it to thin it out. Now if you do this, sometimes the acrylic paint does pick up your distress ink color, and it does soften quite a bit, and it does take a long time to dry. I sped up the drying process by using my heat gun, which kind of made my paper a little bit more warped, but I think we can flatten it with a piece of fun foam. We're going to go ahead and trim down our panel, so it's this panel is gonna leave us a little bit of a border on our regular slimline card. I took the Snowflake, die cut that out with a circle die, and then I did trim down my sentiment. You can see here. I'm going to go ahead and take a slightly larger circle die. The ones that I use are from Art Impressions, and they're double stitch circle dies, but I'm going to die cut out a piece of white cardstock. That way we can mat our sentiment or our individual snowflake on it. We're going to add lots of adhesive behind our panel and go ahead and put this on our slimline card, and you can see it does leave a little bit of a border. And then we're going to add our white circle to the bottom of our individual snowflake. I wasn't going to add white cardstock behind my sentiment, but I think we need to do that because it's kind of getting lost with that background. Let's go ahead and add some white cardstock behind our sentiment. I made it just slightly larger than the sentiment, so we have a little bit of a border. Just making sure that it's evenly spaced from the top and the bottom. I'll angle the end here, and then I think this is going to help with it standing out against that background. We're going to go ahead and attach our snowflake to our sentiment, and then we'll flip this over and we're going to add some foam tape behind it. This is going to give us dimension. Of course, if you don't like all this dimension, you don't need, actually this card doesn't have too much dimension for my cards. But you don't have to add foam adhesive. You could just directly tape it down to your card base. We're going to remove the release paper and add this to our background. And then all we have to do is add a few little bells and whistles. And I'm not doing much because it's pretty busy. I'm just going to bring in my crystal mix gems from Spellbinders. These are the color essential gems, the crystal mix. And we're going to add them to the center of the snowflakes and all around our snowflake points. And I think that looks really pretty. Now, last but not least, I'm going to add a little bit of extra sparkle to our snowflake petals using my Spectrum Noir sparkle pen. And then that finishes off my project for today, guys. And again, the items that I showed you is not the entire release. Simon has a huge, there's lots more, and there's tons more inspiration too. So if you guys want to head on over to the shop, you can check it out. But everything that I used today will be listed down below. If you like snowflakes, I think this is a fabulous stamp set. Have a great day. Thank you so much for stopping by. We will see you again real soon.